Welcome everyone to this presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of the emerging field of multimodal learning analytics in education. We want to frame this methodology using a social cultural lens of activity theory to highlight the role of the teacher. We will also discuss the potential of this reframed methodology in relation to solving a practical problem, which is around formative assessment in primary mathematics. First of all, I would like to introduce our multidisciplinary research team, which including education researchers working in science and mathematics education. We also have a teaching expert who's working in primary school, and also two colleagues from computer science working on data analytics. This presentation is part of a project funded by Science and Society Network. So I want to begin this presentation by talking about the increasing datafication of our school systems and practices. There's a strong global push for data-based or data-driven instructional decision-making. The idea behind this is when data is used effectively, teachers can better target or tailor their instruction to individual students' needs and strengths, and ultimately leading to better learning outcomes. This agenda places greater responsibility on both the teacher and schools to collect, interpret, and also use data to inform their practices. There are many challenges documented. One of those key barriers to moving towards data-driven instructional decision-making is the demand on teachers' assessment and data literacy skills, which requires teachers not only to design assessment tasks, but also use the data from such assessment to inform their instructional planning and teaching. There's also challenges associated with the current assessment tools available in schools. At this point, I will hand over to my colleagues, Associate Professor Wanti Wijaja and Lei Bao, who's going to take you through some of the current formative assessment in use in schools.
Thank you, Li Hua. So this slide introduces one example of formative assessment tool developed by the team at the University of Melbourne. This is an innovative task that targets primary, upper primary and lower secondary school, so year 5 to 9. The SMART test is designed carefully with a set of questions to really target specific topics in mathematics and provides teacher with some teaching suggestions.
Thank you, Wanti. This SMART test is used by our grade 5-6 teachers. It offers 2 quizzes for each topic, and teachers use them for pre and post test. And it focused on the content strength, and but it does not cover the proficiencies at all. And the shortfall for the SMART test can be because it only catered for the upper primary and secondary students. So it would be ideal if it covers the whole primary school levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so the mathematics online interview is well known, and it's a one-on-one interview. Again, this is a formative assessment tool that teachers use in primary school, focusing on early years, and it allows teachers to determine students' existing mathematical knowledge, but focusing on knowledge and strategies on counting, place value, addition and subtraction, as well as multiplication and division. And the data used, analyzed using the growth point developed based on the work of the early numeracy research project. So, Lei, you would like to talk about some of the challenges that we just
Thank you, Wanti. Yes, online interview is used by our prep students and also some low achieving students in year 1 and 2. It is really important formative assessment tool for the early years, but it can be very time consuming, and it often require extra teacher for this can be conducted properly, because it's on a one-on-one interview. Usually takes about 5 to 6 weeks if in a conduct in a cycle and to be completed. So it's really long period of time, and also cost extra money to employ substitute teachers. Thank you. And another formative assessment is very popular at the moment in Victorian schools, is called essential assessment. It is very popular because the teacher likes the all the online tools that can instantly get kids pre and post tests and the results as well. And it provides ZPD, and so you can identify the area for improvement for students. However, the actual assessment is a worksheet sort of a style based assessment, and it lacks a bit of a research support and guidance. So sometimes the topic is very broad when they assess the kids. It doesn't focus on the learning stages of a specific learning area in mathematics. Thank you.
Joe is going to talk about sociocultural framing using the cultural historical activity theory. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Wanti and Lei. So the way that we're going about framing our project is using cultural historical activity theory. We think this is a productive way to move forward with the research, as it takes the teacher as the starting point, as the subject within a broader activity system. In this way, we can then consider the assessment tools that are currently being utilised, just laid out in the previous slides, as instruments that teachers can use in order to move towards particular outcomes in terms of student learning. And so within this context, the object or the main motivation is improvement in the formative assessment tools that teachers might be able to use. Linked to this, also importantly for us, is the notion of division of labour or roles. To date, a lot of research and initiatives around supporting teachers to use and develop formative assessment tools have really positioned the teacher as an end user, and we're wanting to challenge that as we move ahead. Next slide, please. So we ask ourselves and the audience, how might multimodal learning analytics, as framed by sociocultural theory, support primary teachers' development of assessment literacy for mathematics teachers and teaching? So what we need to consider now, therefore, is the history or the development of multimodal learning analytics. So over the past decade or so, there's been a lot of work around the way in which developing technologies enable researchers interested in this field to generate data in real time that tracks student learning, and use this data to then provide feedback in real time to support students to achieve desired learning outcomes. However, this is to date mainly focused on unimodal data, but more recently, with the development of more sophisticated data collection and analysis technology, the multimodal data that's proliferating in classrooms and other learning environments is being accessed by this type of research. Next slide, please. So this prompts questions for us around how might this type of technology best be used to support the needs of teachers, which is our primary motivation, and linked to that, questions around who's best positioned to undertake this research and how might those interested parties be affected by these research processes. Next slide, please. So now what we need to do as a research group is to consider what is the research to date and where might we want to take it. What we are developing an understanding of is that the multimodal learning analytics agenda so far has not focused on the teacher as a starting point, or really worked to try and generate technology that might support the development of teachers' use of multimodal data as a part of formative assessment. And the main reason this has taken place is because a lot of this research is framed in terms of a cognitivist perspective, which is really interested in using the technology to tap into students' physiological signals to then try and predict how they might respond to stimuli, and then intervening in order to direct student learning towards predetermined outcomes. What we see value in using the chat framework is to actually consider multimodal learning analytics from the perspective of the teacher, and in doing so, really work to reposition the teacher as a co-designer and refiner of multimodal learning analytics technology that can really empower teachers to implement and refine and develop formative assessment tools and strategies that can enable them to really move forward student learning in desired directions, which has direct outcomes in terms of how we consider the research in terms of the chat framework. So I'll pass over to Li Hua to further unpack that.
Just to reiterate what Joe has presented, so using activity theory, we consider multimodal learning analytics has the potential to transform the activity, which is formative assessment in this case, through connecting and triangulating assessment data on the same topic, so that we could enable teachers to group and differentiate students more accurately and efficiently. We also consider teachers as designers of assessment who has expertise in interpreting student data to inform their own practices. So this approach to multimodal learning analytics is quite different from the mainstream approach in existing literature. So how do we do this? This diagram sets out what we are proposing as a methodology for developing a formative assessment tool focusing on a topic area in primary mathematics, for example, multiplicative thinking. So the text boxes identify the design elements and processes of this assessment tool. And the field dactyl shape identifies the area of research literature that could inform the design process. Multimodal learning analytics is not only used to support a data analytical process, but also to help us to fine-tune the assessment task based on the feedback from the teacher and potentially from students. So you can see this is an iterative process involving collaboration amongst the team on the task design, data collection and analysis, and also the refinement of assessment task. It also involves human decision-making supported by machine learning. So we are hoping that this could provide us with some productive directions to support teacher formative assessment. Given that we are at the very early stages of this exploration, we would welcome any thoughts or suggestions from you in relation to what has been proposed in this presentation. Thank you.